One of my favorite everyman speaker brands is, without question, JAMO. Even though it's been a couple of years since we talked JAMO on the channel, I'm still a huge fan of their all-inclusive speaker packages, which have always been a great jumping off point for enthusiasts, taking a lot of that guesswork out of assembling a basic home theater system. And while I knew about the Studio 7 series, which came out last year, I never expected to be able to review them after parent company Klipsch said they weren't bringing the 7s to the North American market. So when I saw them online a little over a month ago, I was shocked and I bought the S7-17HCS system on the spot. The Studio 7 series includes JAMO's largest and smallest bookshelf speakers, the 17B and 15B, as well as the 43C, which is the 7 series slimmer center channel speaker. What's missing is a subwoofer. Now, the largest bookshelf only plays down to 64 Hz on its own. Now, in room, the 17B may hit depths as low as 40 Hz. Even so, this is not quite full range. For small to medium-sized rooms, 40 Hz may be enough to give your music or movies that punch they need to be thrilling without, pissing off your neighbors, but for true cinematic full-range playback, you're gonna need to budget for a sub. The 7 series speakers in this package are two-way ported designs relying on varying diameter woofers, but they're all made from the same paper material. All come with the same 1-inch vented fabric dome tweeter. Obviously, the frequency response of each speaker is going to vary a little, but on the whole, the Jamo 7s fall within a reported response of 64 Hz to 25 kHz. Now, sensitivity is rated between 87 and 91 dB, with all of the speakers having a nominal impedance of 4 ohms, making them easy enough to drive so long as you pair them with an amplifier or home theater receiver capable of handling a 4-ohm speaker. Now, Jamo is known for fusing style with substance at an affordable price. Now, stylistically, Jamo has gone in a new direction here, which is clear when you compare these to the older Studio 8 and Concert 9 series. I love the classy design of the less expensive Studio 8 series, but the 7 series new look falls a little bit short for me. Despite my subjective feelings about the style, you can still count on Jamo's commitment to making speakers that aren't your ordinary black box. The 7 series are available in 2 finishes, dark blue with gray accents or a cloudy white color with gray accents. One aspect that has changed is build quality. It's very much improved. Different from Jamo's other lines, the 7s all feature a 7-degree upward tilt to help with time alignment. And this design also let Jamo better isolate the speaker's crossover components by placing them in the speaker's base rather than at the back of the cabinet, as with most speakers you're going to find at this price point. The speaker's cabinets also now have rounded edges to reduce diffraction, which should result in better imaging and separation. For this review, I paired the $1,100 7 series system with Onkyo's new $399 SR3100 receiver. At just under $1,500, this combo is similar to what you're going to pay for a good soundbar nowadays, so if you're debating going with, say, a full speaker package or a soundbar, this review should be of help. But like I mentioned earlier, the Jamo's package does not include a subwoofer. For bass, I added our reference budget sub, the Klipsch SPL100, which currently retails for less than $400. This entire setup anchored by the Jamos will cost you less than $2,000, which is not bad. We're also using an Apple TV 4K and Sony's X90L LED TV. Now, our TV is the 98-inch model, but obviously you don't need this TV to enjoy a home theater system, but I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't hurt. Now let's just get one thing out of the way. Jamo has a reputation for being a brighter, livelier sounding speaker. And while there are a lot of people who like this type of sound, members of the Klippel gang are quick to point to Jamo's V-shaped response curve as being a really big no-no. Well, I acquiesce and say historically, Jamo has a livelier and more punchy sound? You bet. Is their bass more energetic or less nuanced? For some, it will be. Does that make them bad? Hell no. Like any speaker, their sound will be appealing to some, while maybe not so appealing to others. At the end of the day, just go with what you like. With that out of the way, Jamo's new 7 series is different. They're still Jamos, lively and dynamically interesting. Fantastic for big budget action flicks, but with the 7s, Jamo has taken a more refined and mature approach. The larger 17B and smaller 15B both have a more linear overall response and tone. I'm not going to say they're neutral. There is still some resonance and energy in the low mid-bass and bass around 100 Hz, but these speakers, at least in room, don't have the same deep V response of their predecessors. processors. This means the bass remains punchy and present, but what it doesn't do is artificially cloud or muddy up the mid-range. Speaking of mid-range, both bookshelf speakers are shockingly neutral in this area, resulting in very good intelligibility. Now, crossed over with the subwoofer, both sound positively huge and almost tower-like. Shifting my focus to the center speaker real quick, it has a similar boost in the bass, though it does cost this speaker some clarity. There is a sensation of chestiness in the 43C that the bookshelves don't really have. You can get around this by crossing the center speaker over higher than the bookshelf, which effectively cuts their response below 100 Hz, making that bump, that bass boost, null and void. If you find the center less than intelligible or maybe chesty sounding, this is my recommended fix. The highs are extended, but not as airy as what you're going to find in more expensive speakers. At high volumes, the highs can exhibit a bit of graininess opposed to airiness, but I'm talking about volumes of say 85 dB and louder, which is very, very loud. The tweeter does roll off some, but it's nowhere near as soft as or as subdued as say Polk, but also it's not as forward as Bowers & Wilkins' Entry 600 series. Personally, I didn't find the JAMO'S highs to be fatiguing or harsh, and their extension definitely adds some detail, but if you want a fabric dome that's going to rival, say, the one found in Sonus Faber Lumina 2s, keep looking. The 7 soundstage and dynamics is where this system's rubber really meets the road. Starting with dynamics, I gotta say, these are exciting loudspeakers that had no issues filling our large space. We watched Taylor Swift's Eras Tour in Atmos, again using just 5 speakers and a sub. And the experience was so enjoyable that I'm willing to bet most would never know they were listening to a sub $2,000 home theater. Say what you want about Taylor, the woman knows how to put on a show. For over 3 hours, the JAMO'S sheer scale was surprising. I try to remind myself to adjust my expectations when evaluating more affordable products, but I gotta say the JAMO'S challenged me to F around and find out. Whether it was movies or music, there is an appreciable level of sound and detail that extends way beyond the speakers. That said, the 7 Series soundstage is gonna be strongest between the speakers themselves. What took me off guard was just how much height information existed when watching Atmos mixed content, especially considering that none of our overhead Atmos channels were connected. Never mind the fact that the JAMO'S lack upward firing Atmos drivers. Chalk that up to their upward rake, I guess, but some of my favorite action flicks like Top Gun Maverick, they had appreciable overhead sound effects with just the 5 JAMO speakers connected. Now, if you're considering buying any of the 7 Series speakers a la carte, you're probably wondering if you should get the 17 or the 15B bookshelves. Both speakers have essentially the same in-room response, so it really comes down to the bass. The larger 17B, not surprisingly, it plays a little deeper than the smaller 15B. That said, both speakers have the same bass bump and to almost the same degree. Truthfully, these speakers don't sound that different from one another, so get what works best for your space and budget. And you could totally get away with anchoring a stereo or home theater setup with the 15Bs, especially if you're already planning on using a subwoofer. If you buy the cinema system reviewed here, the 15Bs are phenomenal surround sound speakers. It's only fitting to compare the JAMO Studio 7 Series 5-channel home theater in a box to similar all-inclusive speaker systems like, say, DefTech's Pro Cinema 60 and SVS Prime satellite system. Now, you can get all 3 of these setups for around $1,000, but both SVS and DefTech do include a subwoofer. The lack of an included sub is definitely a miss for JAMO, especially considering they make subwoofers of various sizes and shapes. But sub or not, the JAMOs aren't completely outclassed here. Their larger cabinets and bigger mid-bass drivers don't need a sub to flesh out their mid-range and bass the way the DefTech and SVS systems do. Going off my notes and measurements, the DefTech and SVS speaker systems could sound a little leaner and treble forward, whereas the 7 Series is just more balanced. Now, the SVS and DefTech systems, they're going to be more stealthy in their physical and visual footprint, which might work better in, say, a tighter space. But if you're a fan of the JAMO style, I think you're going to be proud to show them off. Compared to JAMO's older Studio 8 series, specifically the S803 5-speaker system, at double the price, the 7s are going to be a step up. In small to even medium-sized rooms, the S803, when paired with a sub, continues to be an embarrassment of sonic riches, but if you're looking for something a little bit more refined, the 7's less bright, less boomy nature is going to fit the bill. Now, one thing I wish you could get with the 7 Series is the 8 Series ability to upgrade to Atmos. The Studio 8's upward-firing Atmos speakers were genius. Now, no word if the 7s will get a similar add-on, but I really doubt it, given their design and upward rake, which does result in good verticality when playing back Atmos tracks. They just lack a dedicated Atmos channel. If you want true, and I'm talking true overhead Atmos channels with the JAMO'S, you're gonna need to invest in either in-ceiling speakers or find a way to mount a pair of, say, 15Bs to your ceiling. Last, and maybe the most important comparison, is the JAMO versus, say, a soundbar like Samsung's Q990C. You know I love the Samsung bar, but for stereo playback, I'm going with the JAMO for their hi-fi stereo imaging. In contrast, the Q990C, like a lot of soundbars, can't quite pull off stereo imaging the same way. Now, when it comes to home theater, though, the decision gets more difficult because both are really good. Obviously, the Samsung takes up less space, it has more drivers, aka speakers, and the Q990C offers an even better sense of immersion when watching movies, especially ones mixed with Atmos in mind. Plus, there's no added investment for a subwoofer or receiver. Now, Christy is making me bring up Sonos here, even though it costs a lot more. I feel the same about the Sonos as I do about the Samsung in this context. What you get with the Sonos is a more neutral voicing that, for me, leads to a better music listening experience when talking about soundbars. But if you're after a more traditional stereo setup, in other words, you are used to two speakers with that phantom center and a soundstage to match, I think you're going to be happiest with the JAMO'S. I am so glad that I stumbled upon the JAMO system. I've had an absolute blast listening to them and just remembering what I love about the brand. And the 7s, they are definitely a step up over JAMO's previous lines, and I'm confident their more mature sound is going to appeal to a broader audience. Nothing else more to say than JAMO has just done it again. They've given people an affordable way to get into home theater without breaking the bank. So that's it. That is now my review on JAMO's brand new 7 Series home theater in a box system. If you're wondering what Christy has to say about this speaker package, be sure to tune in later in the week for our follow-up video going over the JAMO'S. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and go ahead and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Christy's left for you down below, know that that's a great way that you've continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we both do here. And both of us, thank you very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that is it for us today. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you a little bit later in the week. And until then, have a great rest of your day. Bye.